When helpless villagers are pushed to the brink by ruthless bandits, what can they all do? When justice fails and order collapses, who is brave enough to risk their lives to protect complete strangers? Hey everyone, and welcome to Mood Movie. Today, we enter this epic tale by an American director. Directed by John Sturges in 1960, The Magnificent Seven is a legendary remake of Akira Kurosawa's masterpiece, Seven Samurai, using the grit of Western cinema to redefine true courage. What defines a hero? Back in the 1960s, a vicious gang of bandits stormed into a barren Mexican village, violently raiding their livestock and seizing their food. The cruel bandit leader would shoot any villager who dared to resist. Facing such a dire situation, some villagers wanted to fight back. Others just wanted to survive. Only after the village elder advised them did they finally decide to send 3 brave farmers to the American border to buy firearms and defend their own home. In a small, dusty American border town, drifter Chris is driving his wagon toward the Boot Hill Cemetery to bury a stranger, a local Indian who had suddenly passed away, while the gambler Vin rides shotgun, holding his heavy rifle to protect him. All the local shooters who dared to challenge them were soundly defeated.
Boys, a drink's from me!
The crowd cheered, and the 3 visiting farmers watched the whole thing. They approached Chris, explained their dire situation, and asked if he could help them buy weapons. To their surprise, he suggested hiring professional gunslingers because it would be cheaper and far more effective. Villagers naturally saw Chris as their first choice. He didn't want to get involved, but was finally moved by their sincere pleas.
And we have this.
What's that?
Everything we own. Everything of value in the village.
Once he accepted the contract, he immediately began scouting for other men to join. Although the job was highly dangerous and paid only $20 for 6 weeks of grueling work, after some effort, the team of 7 gunslingers was finally formed to take on the mission. Apart from the young rookie Chico, every other member was a battle-hardened veteran who had fallen on hard times but remained deadly. They excitedly returned to the village, only to find the villagers hiding in terror. Not until Chico rang the warning bell did people finally emerge. Chico delivered a stirring speech that rallied the villagers and finally solidified his place among the group. The following day was the village's anniversary celebration, but interestingly, the festivities were almost entirely devoid of women. Actually, all of the women and the children had hidden in the mountains for safety, which is exactly why they were not found when the cruel bandits finally arrived. They died. Chris immediately took charge and began organizing shooting drills for the villagers. At the same time, they constructed defenses suited to the terrain. During this time, Chico accidentally met a local girl while in the forest.
You do anything?
They started rough, but eventually the women hiding in the mountains were all brought back. The day finally arrived as Talvera charged in with a massive force. But upon seeing the 7 gunslingers, he instantly realized why his 3 scouts had never all returned.
Or maybe even work for it.
Both sides traded sharp insults before violence suddenly erupted. The bandit gang foolishly attacked first, but they really failed to gain any advantage at all in this tense exchange. The bandits were completely exposed in the plaza and stuck on their horses, unable to maneuver, while the defensive team used the terrain for cover and high ground, attacking repeatedly. Even the villagers grabbed weapons, joining the fight for the very first time. Among the 7, Lee, who was suffering from trauma, lost his nerve and hid in the shadows, trembling in fear. After 1 round of battle, the bandits could no longer hold their ground and started to retreat, but they ran right into Vim, who was waiting to block their escape. The team pushed the attack, and the bandits suffered even more heavy losses. With a dozen bodies left behind, the survivors scrambled to escape the area. The battle ended in a complete victory for the defenders. Villagers quickly huddled together, cheering and swapping war stories while boasting about their courage. As the leader toasted Chris and his men, a shot suddenly rang out, shattering his glass. The glass shattered, and the defenders scrambled toward the entrance. Chico, caught off guard, was nearly hit when a bullet whizzed right over his head. The bullet pierced through his hat. When things finally settled, they noticed 3 bandit figures lurking outside, but they made no attempt to attack the village. When darkness came, the group organized patrols and ordered everyone to remain alert. Nobody knew if the gang would come back, and the uncertainty made everyone feel hopeless. Chico was the only one in high spirits. Nobody expected a casual remark from Chris to trigger such a daring and a dangerous reconnaissance mission.
While you're at it, why don't you ask Calvera what he has in mind for tonight?
Yes, do that. And I'll write a song for you myself.
Late at night, while the men rested and speculated on the bandits' next moves, Chico suddenly burst through the door with urgent information. He insisted that the bandits would attack because they'd been without food for 3 days, confusing everyone. He explained he used a captured Mexican sombrero and gear to disguise himself as a bandit, successfully infiltrated their camp, and learned they were all starving. This critical info immediately sparked a heated debate among the men. Some villagers were scared and wanted to surrender. Under immense pressure, the village leader could not take it anymore and demanded the protection team leave at once. They parted on bad terms, and while some of the 7 tried to abandon the mission, Chris insisted they stay to continue to fight. He believed they had a contract to uphold and needed to fight to the end. Chris then detailed his bold plan to launch an active assault. The 7 left that night to head for the bandit camp, hoping to catch them all off guard or scare their horses away so the gang would have to fight on foot. But the final outcome was a massive shock to them all. The forest was empty, the bandits gone. Returning disappointed, they realized they had walked into an enemy trap. It turned out that the cowardly village leader had betrayed them, and the bandits had circled back to surround the group. Under his command, the villagers dropped their weapons, and Calvera promised that if the 7 disarmed, they could take whatever they wanted from that entire small village. He claimed their gear would be returned to them once they left, but warned that otherwise they would all be killed. With no choice, Chris agreed to the terms, so the team surrendered their weapons and they all packed their bags to leave. Guarded by the bandits, they rode away from the village. The gang returned their guns as promised, but they failed to anticipate the twist that came at dawn.
Adios!
但让匪徒们没有想到的是，天亮之后，
Except for the greedy Harry, who rode away for good, the other 6 gunslingers chose to turn back and quietly infiltrated the village, where sharp, sudden gunfire rang out. A thug dropped, prompting the leader and his men to burst out and join the fight. During the intense battle, Bernardo quickly climbed a high rooftop to provide heavy cover fire, while the expert knife thrower Britt held his ground behind a low wall, and young novice Chico darted through alleys, attacking the bandits. Vin was moving quickly through the houses and narrow alleys, catching enemies off guard. After taking down 2 bandits, he was sadly wounded in the leg, so the gunfighter retreated to a shack to take cover. Chris covered the plaza, fighting as he retreated, but when he tried to duck into a shack, he found the door locked. He was forced to fight from the doorway, a maneuver noticed by the alert and cunning bandit leader. So he drew his gun, leading a charge, and his comrades rushed to help. At that critical moment, one man on a horse suddenly galloped right into the village. It was Harry, who had previously left, but before he could join the fight, a bandit shot his mount, suddenly causing him to fall. Then he took a painful bullet to the gut. Chris rushed over with Vim, and they rescued their wounded comrade into a shack. Bernardo provided cover, but he was suddenly struck by a bullet to the chest. The bandit gang surged forward, attempting to force the door open. Inside the shack, a dying Harry kept on pressing Chris. They weren't protecting the village just for corn and peppers. Was there some real treasure buried right under here? Chris played along and lied, claiming $500,000 in gold was hidden here, and he would receive $70,000. Satisfied, Harry finally died. Vin then shattered the window pane to continue fighting back against the relentless bandit assault. Lee, who had been too afraid to fight, finally gathered his courage and faced his fear. He then quickly kicked open the door to one of the small shacks now. The 3 bandits guarding them were killed instantly, and the 5 imprisoned villagers were freed. They grabbed various tools and furniture to use as weapons. They launch a fierce attack on the bandits, who are caught off guard and are routed instantly. Chris watches the unfolding scene calmly, his face filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. Suddenly, a shot rang out from the shadows, and Lee was hit, falling instantly to the dusty ground. The villagers fought even harder, and the women even joined the battle to help. The bandit leader crept up toward the window, intending to ambush Chris from behind, but the gunslinger reacted with lightning speed and fired back instantly. With the enemy fleeing, the leader finally found his courage and rushed forward with a chair. Other villagers were inspired and followed suit. At this point, the final battle was won. Looking up at Chris with his final breath, the dying bandit leader asked why they had come back to risk their lives for a poor village like this. What was the point of it all? Sadly, he died before he could ever get an answer. Britt, the expert knife thrower, kept firing. Several bandits fleeing on horseback were hit, all falling down to the ground in the chaos. Britt also took a bullet and fell to the ground. He struggled to get up, trying to throw one last knife, but ultimately failed, collapsed to the earth, and finally died right there. 3 kids suddenly appeared. Bernardo quickly pushed the children behind a stone wall, but right then, a fatal bullet suddenly struck him directly in his gut. Bernardo loved kids. Earlier, the children complained about their fathers, which made him furious because he valued family. He firmly told them not to despise their fathers, explaining that their parents carried heavy life burdens and were certainly not cowards, which forged a strong, lasting bond between them. The 3 kids once innocently promised that if he died, they would cover his grave with flowers. Sadly, that promise has now come true.
So you see your fathers?
That was the end for Bernardo. The battle was finally over. After the battle, the gang was destroyed, but the team suffered heavy losses. 4 were killed, leaving only Chris, Vin, and the rookie Chico alive. The 3 politely refused the elder's offer and rode to the village edge. Chico stopped his horse and, with encouragement from friends, rode back to the village, returning to his beloved girl. She had already defied her father's wishes to clearly express her deep love for him. Now that he had truly grown through this battle, they could look forward to a happy life together. The children dutifully placed a bunch of flowers on Bernardo's grave, finally fulfilling the promise they had made to him. Chris and Vin rode off together toward the horizon, and the classic film finally came to an emotional close. The Magnificent Seven, directed by American filmmaker John Sturges, was a true classic that stood the test of time. The film tells the legendary, heroic story of 7 skilled gunmen who defend a vulnerable Mexican village against a ruthless gang of bandits. The film had a budget of $2 million and grossed $11 million worldwide. To this day, it holds a rating of 7.4 on Dubon, with thousands of reviews. It holds a 7.7 rating on IMDb from over 100,000 users, although reception in America was mixed when the movie first hit theaters. The Times criticized weak character motives and cliché plot. Once it exploded in Europe, its American reputation turned around, and the iconic score is rightfully considered one of the best in the entire history of cinema. Its theme has become an anthem for heroism and teamwork, frequently used in sports and advertisements to symbolize legendary grit. In 1961, at the 33rd Academy Awards, the film received a nomination for Best Original Score. Today, The Magnificent Seven is hailed as a model of Hollywood adapting Eastern classics, successfully blending the samurai spirit with the code of the American cowboy. By focusing on a dynamic ensemble team rather than just a lone hero, it completely revolutionized the Western genre and paved the way for many other classic films to follow in its footsteps. The film's theme is true chivalry, stronger together, shining individually. These 7 gunslingers had unique backgrounds and deep flaws, and they initially came to the village only for a small, meager reward. Yet, through their bond with the villagers, their pure kindness and trust transformed the mercenaries into devoted defenders. They knew they were heavily outnumbered, but they still stepped up to fight for justice, showing fearless courage that made their humanity shine with a truly brilliant light. While the action sequences might seem a bit dated by today's standards, back then, the film was widely considered the absolute peak achievement for Western movies. Thanks to its success, 3 sequels were released between 1966 and 1972. Then, in 2016, a modern remake starring the acclaimed actor Denzel Washington officially hit the big screen now. While later fights were more exciting, to many fans, the 1960 version of The Magnificent Seven remains the only timeless, true classic. Have you ever seen this classic movie? How would you rate it? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below.